already know what to do. You know the habit you need to break. You know the conversation you've been avoiding. You know the version of yourself you're supposed to be becoming. You can describe it in detail. You can explain why it matters. You've read the books, watched the videos, highlighted the passages. And yet, when the moment comes, you don't move. Tomorrow, you'll know again. And tomorrow, again, you won't move. So you've built a story to explain it. You tell yourself you lack discipline, you lack willpower, you're not serious enough, not committed enough, not strong enough. You treat the loop as a moral failure, as if somewhere inside you there is a character defect that more self-criticism will eventually fix. And the worse you feel about not acting, the more you read about how to act. The more you read, the less you move. What if the story is wrong? What if the reason you don't do what you know is not a flaw in your character, but a feature of your brain? One that no amount of insight will override on its own. William James, the father of American psychology and the first thinker to study with scientific precision why humans act against their own knowledge, looked at this exact loop more than a century ago and saw something most people still refuse to see. Knowing and doing are not the same system. They do not live in the same place. They do not share circuitry. Understanding something deeply in your conscious mind does not automatically build the neural path that produces the matching behavior. The brain does not act on what you know. It acts on what you have practiced enough to make automatic. That is the gap. And it cannot be closed by more knowing. Every time you consume another piece of information about the life you're supposed to be living, a part of you feels like progress just happened. Something shifted. A new clarity arrived. But nothing in your nervous system changed. The comfort you feel is chemical, not structural. And by tomorrow, it will be gone. And you will still be the person who does not act. Worse, you will be that person slightly more than you were yesterday. What you are about to learn is not a strategy. It is a diagnosis of why every strategy has failed so far, and where, inside the architecture of your own brain, the real work has been waiting for you the whole time. You've already figured it out. You know where it started. You can name the people, the years, the patterns. You've read the books, had the conversations, sat across from therapists, and explained your own life back to yourself in clean paragraphs. And none of it made you able to rest. This is the part nobody warned you about. You can understand your trauma perfectly and still flinch when someone raises their voice. You can map every dynamic of your childhood and still freeze when a partner walks into the room with the wrong expression on their face. You can be brilliant about your past and still, physically, live inside of it. Van der Kolk spent years watching this happen. Patients who had done the work, who could articulate everything, and whose bodies had not received the memo. He realized something that reorganized his entire field. Trauma is not primarily a story. It is not a memory locked in the archive of the mind, waiting to be retrieved and examined. Trauma is a physiological imprint, a recalibration of the nervous system itself. When something overwhelming happens, the brain's alarm system, the amygdala, the brainstem, the autonomic circuits, learns. It learns what danger looks like, smells like, sounds like. It learns how to fire faster next time. And after enough firing, it stops asking whether the threat is still there. It just fires. This is why you can know intellectually that you are safe and still have a body that disagrees. The part of your brain that knows you're safe isn't the part running the show. It's being overruled, moment by moment, by a lower system that doesn't speak in words and doesn't care about your insight. Van der Kolk put it plainly. Long after the traumatic experience is over, the survival brain can be reactivated by the faintest hint of danger, and it mobilizes the entire organism as if the original event were happening again. Right now, in your living room, at your job, next to someone who loves you. This is not a failure of processing. It is a feature of how the system was built. What saved you is still running, which means the strategy most people try, thinking their way out, analyzing harder, understanding deeper, is using the wrong tool on the wrong layer. It's like trying to rewrite machine code by giving a speech about it. The code doesn't hear you. It doesn't know what a speech is. The nervous system speaks one language. It is not English. It is not Portuguese. It is not argument. It is experience. Slow, repeated, somatic experience of something new happening to the body while the body is paying attention. That's the shift. That's why nothing has been working. You've been addressing the part of yourself that already knows. The part that doesn't know has been waiting, patiently, for you to stop explaining and start teaching it something it can actually feel. And before we can do that, you need to see exactly how it's been running your life without your permission. Because survival mode isn't one thing. It has 3 doors. And you've been walking through all of them without knowing that. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Your brain is not neutral. You imagine it as a kind of open field, where every morning you get to choose which direction to walk. That is the fantasy of the deliberative self, the belief that willpower is a clean instrument, pointed wherever you point it. James destroyed that fantasy with a single observation. The brain is not a field. It is a landscape already shaped, cut through with channels, grooves, and well-worn tracks carved by years of repetition. When an impulse arrives, it does not choose a direction. It flows down the path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance is whatever you have done most. James called this plasticity, the nervous system's tendency to retain the form of whatever has been pressed into it. Repeat a behavior enough times, and it stops being a behavior. It becomes terrain. The action you know you should take, the one you've been planning for months, is not terrain. It is a line drawn on a map, beautiful, articulate, completely powerless against the road beneath your feet. This is why willpower always loses in the long run. Willpower is the deliberative self trying to climb out of the groove. It can do this for a morning, for a week, for a dramatic stretch of resolution after a bad night of honest reflection. But the groove does not disappear while you resist it. It is still there, waiting, exactly as deep as it was before. And the moment your attention slips, the moment you are tired, hungry, anxious, distracted, bored, your foot slides back into the familiar line. Not because you failed, because the terrain did exactly what terrain does. You have been fighting your own neurology with a pep talk. Notice what James is not saying. He is not saying you cannot change. He is saying that change is never a matter of deciding harder. It is a matter of carving, slowly, deliberately, through repetition so consistent that the nervous system begins to treat the new behavior as terrain instead of as effort. The first time you do the new thing, it is almost unbearable, because every cell in your body is being asked to cross open ground. The 100th time, it begins to feel possible. The 1000th time, it is automatic. But there is no shortcut from the first to the 1000th. There is only the path being carved, one step at a time. And here is what makes the situation worse than most people realize. The old path is not static. Every day you live inside it, it deepens. Every time you reach for the phone, avoid the conversation, skip the work, scroll instead of begin. You do not merely fail to build the new path. You reinforce the old one. You make it easier to fall into tomorrow. The ground beneath you is not waiting patiently for your decision. It is actively shaping itself in the direction you keep walking, which means the loop you are in is not a pause before change. It is an acceleration away from it. And that acceleration has a mechanism. It has a specific, identifiable way of getting worse. A pattern James named with devastating precision: and one that explains why knowing what to do has quietly become the thing that keeps you from doing it. Inaction is not neutral. You think of it as a pause, a delay, a gap between the moment you understood what to do and the moment you'll finally do it. You treat today's failure to act as if it leaves tomorrow exactly as it was. Same distance to the change, same odds of making it. That is the most dangerous lie the loop tells you. James saw it clearly over a century ago, and what he saw is worse than anything your self-criticism has imagined. Every time you know what to do and don't do it, you do not stay the same. You get worse, not metaphorically, neurologically. The brain is always practicing something. When the moment to act arrives and you let it pass, you are not failing to practice the new behavior. You are actively practicing the old one. You are rehearsing the sequence of hesitation, rationalization, and retreat. And rehearsal, as James showed, is how the nervous system learns. Every rehearsed non-action deepens the groove of non-action. The next opportunity arrives in a slightly worse brain than the one before it. This is why people who have known what they need to do for 10 years are further from doing it than they were at the start. Not closer. But there is a second mechanism, and it is more insidious than the first. When the discomfort of not acting becomes unbearable, the deliberative self reaches for something to relieve it. And the cheapest, most available form of relief is to learn more. To read one more book, watch one more video, find one more thinker who will finally explain the thing you already understand. The learning gives you a small chemical jolt, the feeling of progress, of forward motion, of almost ready. And that jolt, James warned, is the exact moment where character begins to rot. He called it, with unforgiving clarity, the nerveless sentimentalist, the person who feels deeply and thinks deeply and resolves deeply, but who never does a concrete deed. And what James understood, which most people still refuse to, is that this person is not on their way to becoming someone better. They are being unmade. Every cycle of intense feeling followed by no action teaches the nervous system that emotional intensity is the endpoint, that the insight itself is the arrival, that nothing further is required. You know this person. You suspect you might be this person. The proof is simple. Count the number of times you have felt, in the last year, that something finally clicked, that a new understanding had arrived and would change everything. Now count the number of those clicks that produced a single new behavior sustained for more than 2 weeks. The gap between those numbers is not a coincidence. It is the signature of a nervous system being trained through repetition to feel instead of move. And the more you consume, the wider the gap grows. Knowledge stops being a tool. It becomes an anesthetic. It soothes the ache of not acting without demanding the cost of acting, which means you can continue not to act indefinitely while feeling increasingly intelligent about your paralysis. This is the point where most people quietly give up. Not loudly, not visibly. They simply move into a posture of permanent preparation, mistaking it for a life. But James did not leave his readers there. He identified, with surgical exactness, the one reversal powerful enough to break the mechanism. A principle so counterintuitive that almost no one applies it, even after they read it. If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebooks. Beyond the Shadow breaks down Jung's core ideas, while Dialogues with the Unconscious gives you a 30-day path to apply them in your life. Both are linked in the pinned comment. You have the sequence backwards. For as long as you can remember, you have believed in an order that feels obvious. First, you get clear, then you get motivated, then you feel ready, and then, finally, you act. Clarity produces feeling. Feeling produces motion. Motion produces change. You have been waiting for years for the first domino to fall hard enough to knock down the rest. It never does. And you assume the problem is that the clarity wasn't deep enough, or the feeling wasn't strong enough, or the moment wasn't right. James looked at this sequence and reversed it. Action does not come from feeling. Feeling comes from action. You do not become a person who moves by first becoming someone who feels like moving. You become that person by moving and letting the feeling catch up. He wrote it plainly in the Principles of Psychology. We need only, in cold blood, act as if the thing we want were already real, and keep acting as if it were real until it becomes knit so deeply into habit and emotion that it is real. Not metaphorically, structurally. The identity follows the behavior. The motivation follows the movement. The readiness follows the first unready step. Read that again. It is not a trick of attitude. It is a description of how the nervous system actually works. You are waiting to feel like the person who does the thing. That feeling will never come before the doing. It cannot. The feeling is produced by the doing, by the brain registering over and over that this is something you now do. Until you act, there is no data for the feeling to be built from. You are waiting for an output to arrive without ever running the input. And this is where the whole loop collapses if you let it. Because the story you've been telling yourself, that you'll act when you're ready, was never a strategy. It was the mechanism of avoidance itself, dressed up as patience. Readiness is not a prerequisite, it is a consequence. And if you insist on having it first, you are asking the universe to deliver the reward before you have done the work that produces it. The people whose lives you quietly envy did not feel ready. They did not wake up one morning transformed. They acted, badly and unconvincingly, before the feeling arrived. They walked into the conversation before the courage was there. They started the work before they believed they could. They got out of bed before they wanted to. And over hundreds of small, imperfect, unglamorous acts, their nervous system rewrote itself around the behavior, until one day the feeling of being that person simply was there, quietly installed, not as a gift, but as the residue of everything they had already done. You have been trying to think your way into a feeling that can only be earned by moving, which means the next action is not waiting for your readiness. It is waiting for your willingness to act without it, to act in cold blood, as James said, before the emotion, before the certainty, before any part of you has signed off on the permission slip you keep waiting for. And once you accept that, the question becomes mechanical, specific, buildable. James left behind a set of rules for exactly how to begin, how to carve the new path into the brain with the smallest possible ceremony, starting today. James did not leave you with a philosophy. He left you with instructions. After diagnosing, with more precision than anyone before him, the exact mechanism of why humans fail to act on what they know, he did something most thinkers refuse to do. He wrote down the rules, 4 of them, stated plainly, drawn directly from his observation of how the nervous system actually learns. They are not motivational. They are neurological. Treat them that way. The first, launch yourself with as strong and decided an initiative as possible. When you begin something new, do not begin quietly. Do not begin tentatively. Accumulate every circumstance that reinforces the decision. Make engagements incompatible with the old path. Take a public pledge, if the case allows. Envelop the beginning with every aid you can summon. James saw clearly what almost everyone gets wrong. The first days of a new habit are the most fragile, and the weight of momentum is the only thing that carries you through the resistance. A quiet start is a dead start. The second, never suffer an exception to occur until the new habit is securely rooted. Each lapse, James said, is like letting fall a ball of string you have been carefully winding up. A single slip undoes more than many turns will wind again. This sounds severe. It is severe, because the nervous system does not understand just this once. It only understands frequency. One exception, taken early, teaches the brain that the new path is optional. 2 exceptions teach it that the old path is still home. You are not negotiating with a moral agent. You are carving a groove. The groove does not make allowances. The third, and this is the one that rearranges a life, seize the very first possible opportunity to act on every resolution you make. Not tomorrow, not when you're ready. The first opportunity. It is not in the moment of forming the resolution that the new direction gets transmitted to the brain. It is in the moment the resolution produces a motor effect, a physical, concrete act. Until an intention passes through the body, it does not exist in the nervous system. It is weather. It is vapor. Take one action, however small, within 24 hours of every decision you make, or understand that the decision never actually happened. The fourth, keep the faculty of effort alive by a little gratuitous exercise every day. Do something every day or two for no other reason than that it is difficult, not useful, not productive, just difficult. Because the capacity to override the path of least resistance is itself a muscle, and it atrophies when it is not used. James compared it to paying a small insurance premium, so that when the hour of real need arrives, the faculty is trained and available. Most people discover at the worst possible moment that they spent years letting that muscle go soft. Notice what is missing from these maxims. No mention of motivation, no mention of mindset, no mention of finding your why, visualizing your future self, or aligning with your purpose. James is not interested in any of it. He is interested in one question: how does the nervous system change? And his answer is brutally specific. It changes through decisive initiation, uninterrupted repetition, immediate action, and the ongoing exercise of effort for its own sake. This is the architecture, not a feeling, not a philosophy, a set of physical instructions for building a new path in a brain that is, at this very moment, reinforcing the old one. Which leaves you with the final question, the one the whole video has been building toward, and the one that cannot be answered by anyone but you. James said it in a single devastating line. We are, all of us, mere walking bundles of habits, not potential, not intention, not the person you plan to become. You are, right now, as you read this, the precise sum of everything you have practiced enough to make automatic. The gestures, the words, the avoidances, the small surrenders repeated so many times they no longer feel like choices. This is what you are. And this is what will walk out of this video and into tomorrow, unless something concrete changes in the next few hours. Let that land. The you that was going to start Monday has been going to start Monday for years. The you that was going to have the conversation has been going to have it since the last time you saw them. The you that was going to build the thing, leave the thing, change the thing. That you does not exist yet. It has never existed. It is a fiction your deliberative self maintains to spare you the weight of seeing what you actually are. And what you actually are is beautiful and terrifying in the same breath. Beautiful, because every path in your nervous system was carved by you, which means every path can be carved differently by you. Terrifying, because nothing is carved by knowing. Nothing is carved by reading this. Nothing is carved by the click of recognition you have felt, somewhere in the last 40 minutes, where a sentence cut closer than you expected. That recognition is not change. It is only the deliberative self, once again, feeling something and mistaking it for movement. Here is the hardest truth of this video. You already know enough. You have always known enough. The knowledge was never the problem. The library inside your head is already overflowing with what you need. And one more book, one more video, one more perfectly articulated insight will not deliver you across the gap. The gap is not made of information. It is made of neural paths that do not yet exist. And the only tool that carves them is the one thing you have been avoiding the entire time. A specific, physical, concrete act taken today, before you feel ready, before the doubt resolves, before any part of you signs off on it. Not a plan to act, not a resolution to act, An act, something small enough that resistance has nothing to grip, and concrete enough that your nervous system cannot pretend it didn't happen. One call made, one sentence written, one message sent, 1 minute of the thing you have been postponing for a year. The content matters less than the crossing, because the moment you move, in cold blood, before the feeling arrives, you have introduced a new stroke into the bundle, a small one, almost invisible, but real in a way that no amount of understanding has ever been real. And if you do not act within the next 24 hours on the single thing you already know, then understand what has happened here. This video became another cycle, another hit of insight, another quiet reinforcement of the path of inaction, dressed up as a breakthrough. So sit with that, and tell me, in the comments, what the act is, and whether you will take it before the day ends. Name it. Writing it down is the first small motor effect that begins to transmit the resolution to the brain. And when you're ready to continue, not someday, but when the next turn of this work calls you back, there is another video waiting. What you've seen here has begun something inside you that a single viewing cannot finish. You already know that. The work has already started. The only question left is whether you will keep walking.